Here are 4 things I'm never saying again about asexuality. So because of the work I do, I talk about asexuality a lot. And over the years, I have developed scripts and ways of talking about asexuality that people seem to find really helpful. These scripts make some of the complexities of our community's experience a bit more approachable. But I'm always on the lookout for new and clearer ways to talk about our community's experience. And I'm also looking for ways to talk more positively about our community's experience. I'm mindful of the ways that I am evolving my own language for my ACE experience, and I pay attention to the way other people talk about ACEness too. So in this video, what I wanted to do was share with you 4 ways of talking about asexuality that I am striking from my vocabulary. I am removing them from my scripts. I'm never going to use them again. So if you recognize any of these 4 things in the way you talk about asexuality, consider whether or not they're helpful things to say, and think about ways that you can change them for yourself. Asexuality is a lack of. So when I started Ace Dad Advice, this is one of the ways that I would describe asexuality. Asexuality is a lack of sexual attraction. Asexuality is a lack of experiencing sexual attraction. And while on the surface that is an accurate way to talk about aceness, I have developed a bit of an issue with the word lack. When we talk about aceness as a lack of something, we are framing asexuality in comparison with some other experience, the experience of allosexuality. And when we talk about aceness as being the lack of something, we are saying that the other experience, allosexuality, is the one we should be having, is the one that should be present, is the one that we should expect to be having. It is the experience, and our experience, aceness, is the lack. And I think it's really important for us to not think of our experience as a lack of something. We are not the absence of an experience that should be there. We are one of the many ways in which one can inhabit a body and one can experience the world. Asexuality does not describe something that is missing. Asexuality simply describes a different thing that is. So when I talk about asexuality, I don't use the word lack, and I don't talk about asexuality as though it is an absence of some other kind of experience that I might expect to be present. Instead, I just talk about asexuality as something that can be. It's not experiencing sexual attraction. That's one of the options. It's one of the ways you might experience the world. That simple change removes an unspoken idea that we are absent something that is and should be there. That change reflects the truth of asexuality, that we are simply one reflection of the world's incredible, diverse experience. It's only about attraction. So this one shows up in a number of different ways. It shows up in that basic form, it's only about attraction. But it also can show up as it's attraction, not action. It's not about sex or any other variation that pits attraction versus some behavior that exists around sexual attraction. And I will admit, for a while, I did echo this sentiment in the way I talked about and taught asexuality. But I've made a shift in this in the last year or so, because I think it is important for us to acknowledge that it isn't only about attraction. That action, sex, has a really important part to play in how we experience asexuality. The relationship between sexual attraction and the sex we have or don't have is incredibly complex and sometimes very confusing. So for some folks who are approaching asexuality for the first time, a focus strictly on the experience of sexual attraction can make it hard to see how asexuality has anything to do with them, even if they're having an asexual experience. Even within solely the experience of sexual attraction, there is a wide range of experiences asexual people can have with sexual attraction. So even though our definition allows for not or rarely experiencing sexual attraction, it can be very hard to see if your experience of sexual attraction fits the definition of asexuality. This focus and this murkiness in the definition can lead some people who would greatly benefit from the community of asexuality and the attaching of the label of asexuality to themselves from accessing those positive experiences. I think it's also important to talk about sex as a crucial part of defining asexuality, because whether or not we are having sex or how we are having sex is an incredibly important part in how we experience the marginalization of being ace. For the most part, we aren't othered because of how we experience attraction. We are mostly othered as ace people for our choices around sex. If you're ace and choose not to have sex, you are othered by an allonormative society that focuses on compulsory sexuality. If you are ace and have sex, but have it in ways that are not culturally expected, that's the place in which you are experiencing your otherness. So I think when we talk about what aceness is, it is important for us to acknowledge that both sexual attraction and our relationship to sex play important roles in defining the shape of our ace experience. It defines the shape of how we experience marginalization, and this more expansive acknowledgement that asexuality is about sexual attraction and sex will allow more people who are inhabiting ace experiences to recognize themselves within aceness. Even though I'm ace, I still have relationships even though I'm ace. I still have sex even though I'm ace. I'm polyamorous even though I'm ace. I have been guilty of this particular construction for a long time, and I'm still sometimes guilty of it. This one slips through a lot. I think when we frame things that we are and other parts of our experience through this lens of, I am this thing even though I'm ace, we are talking about our asexuality as though it is expected it might be some kind of roadblock. We're talking about aceness as something we've had to overcome, a challenge we've had to conquer, an enemy we fought to get to the other side. And while I think sometimes aceness can certainly feel that way, we don't do ourselves any favors by talking about aceness in that way. The way we talk about aceness, particularly in the context where we're talking about aceness as some kind of challenge or obstacle or thing we have to overcome, those messages can become very easy to internalize. We may say them in an innocuous way or an innocuous context, but those messages can burrow deep inside us in ways that we begin to think they are the truth. And it's important to remember that the way we talk about aceness to other people teaches them what's okay to say and what's okay to think about our aceness. So if we are framing our asexuality as something we had to get over, an even though thing in our lives, we're telling other people it's okay for you to think about it that way. It's okay for you to think about my aceness as an obstacle, a challenge, a thing to overcome. So I don't have sex even though I'm ace. I have sex and I'm ace. I have relationships and I'm ace. I'm polyamorous and I'm ace. I am both of those things. They are both positive things. They are both components that make me up. I am not one thing in spite of the other. That small change reminds me to not think of my aceness as an obstacle, and it tells the world to not think of my aceness as an obstacle. And I deserve that, and so do you. I'm sorry. We apologize for our aceness all the time. It is very common for ace folks when they are entering into relationships of all kinds to apologize right up front, right away for their aceness. I'm sorry my aceness is so hard to deal with. I'm sorry my aceness is confusing. I'm sorry we have to do so much compromising because of my aceness. We apologize for our aceness and as a result, apologize for ourselves. And it is my crusade as ace dad advice to make us stop apologizing for who we are, for what we want. We deserve better than that. As before, when we apologize for our aceness right off the bat, we are creating negative messages that we internalize. What we tell people is what we begin to believe about ourselves. And by apologizing, we are telling other people how to think about our aceness. If we think it's something to apologize for, they're given permission to think about it as a problem. And when we apologize for our aceness, we are suggesting to other people that asexuality is something to be ashamed of. I'm sorry you have to see this. I'm sorry you have to think about it. I'm sorry you have to deal with it. When we communicate that about asexuality, it tells other people, I'm ashamed of my aceness. And if there is one thing that Ace Dad Advice teaches you about asexuality, please let it be that you have nothing to be ashamed of. Your asexuality is part of the truth of you, as every other thing that is true about you is. We deserve to live unapologetic ace lives. So if you get rid of any of these, let it be I'm sorry. Strike I'm sorry from your ace vocabulary. Don't apologize for being ace. There is never a reason to be apologetic for your truth. I hope this conversation was helpful. I hope it's helped you get rid of some negative language constructions around asexuality for yourself and your relationships. And I hope you go out in the world talking about your aceness in a more positive way. See you in the next video.